Ooh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. High somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of once to come true. Ooh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Welcome to the greatness machine, my friend Ash Kumar.
Hey, thank you. Fabulous. I love that.
Oh man, welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to the greatest machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and man, do we have a special guest for you today? And my friend, my mentor, there and then some, my accountability partner, Ash Kumar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction, more than I deserve. Thank you.
Well, guys, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Look, the format of the show is quite simple. We're bringing together change makers who have lived their passions to create greatness in the world. And when I think of greatness and I think of passion, Ash is on the top of my list. So I'm so glad to have him here to share his thoughts on the world around us with all of you. Before we get going, though, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, sorry we were running late. There was a little bit of tech issues on my side. But we are live. I have my team on standby. Start a watch party. Ask us questions. The team's here. They'll send the questions over. And I just have to say this. So every day, every morning for the past, now, first of all, I've known Ash for a couple of years. We're in this program together at MIT. It's a lifelong learner program called Gathering of Titans. And he and I, a couple of years ago, sat next to each other. And we had this really, really interesting moment where this woman by the name of Kat Hoke came to us. And yesterday I showed her book when I was talking to Steve Sims. And she did this thing where you had to stand next to your partner, look them in the eyes, and not say a word. And you're probably like, and you had to like evoke your feelings to them. And it was this really emotional moment. And Ash and I stood next to each other, and we had this really interesting interaction. And I felt like he and I connected that moment and that day. And ever since then, we've been in touch casually. Then we joined a accountability group together. And every morning, besides my family, the first voice I hear is my friend Ash's. And we hold each other accountable to about 44 questions about how we want to live our lives. So that in of itself, I think, says a lot about who Ash is. But I do want to give a little bit of an intro. Ash is a serial entrepreneur. He's a serial entrepreneur, CEO, and he's a very, very successful guy in the world of real estate. He runs Ashford Communities. It's a family business of his. They own many pieces of real estate all over the state of Texas, and I'm guessing outside of the state of Texas as well. But that's not why I asked them to be on the show. I think that his on paper, his business credentials speak loudly for themselves. And I have a couple friends in this world that are very, very successful real estate guys, and Ash's is at or near the top of the list on that. Why I wanted him on the show was really when you meet people who have accomplished what most people consider success on paper, and they have a completely different view about what success is, that baffles the norm. That's when I get really interested, because I could bring on people that are wealthy and rich and doing great things or living these exotic, wonderful lives. And that's interesting for about 3 minutes, because then everyone after that says, oh, screw that guy. I'm not him. But where I think Ash shines is that you truly do embody the word success, in my opinion, from the position of a holistic meaning of success. So what I wanted to do, number one, Ash, that was a very lengthy way of me saying thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And number two, it was, I really want, I guess my first question for you is, how are you doing? And yeah, like, like I want to talk about success because I think that you really have a unique and approachable way of looking at it. So how's it going? Number one. And number two, yeah, like what do you have to say about the ideas of success for the many people out there who quote unquote want to be successful?
So first of all, I feel grateful and blessed to be here with you. So that tells you something about the way I think. I believe success has a mindset in it. Success, financial success is obviously important. Uh, it gives you freedom to do things that you wouldn't normally do. But in addition to that, success can be about, in my case, it's about family, friends, having a great time. I'll give you an example. Being success can also mean being able to do things that you don't feel guilty about, such as this morning, I have a grandson and I went to see him. First thing I did at 9 a.m. this morning was go to see him, which is a very unusual thing in that it's 25 minutes from here, from my house. So, and not feeling guilty about it. And then being able to go to a property after that and then come back to the office, my home office actually right now. So success can be measured in different ways. This is one of my measurements. I think it's easier to get success financially and very hard to get success in other parts of life, such as business, friendships, having a good time, vacationing, etc.
So a question to that, and that I think a lot of people might feel differently about that. I think a lot of people might feel that success in financially is so hard and unattainable. And for so many, obviously in this country, we have a wide gap between the wealthy and the quote unquote less wealthy. And so, and I guess there's less of a barrier to entry to having a friend and spending time with family. So why do you think that's if that's the case? Like when you look at it, you say it's easier to make the money than it is to have the wealth associated with relationships and love and connection and friends. Why do you think that?
So one of the things you've heard me talk about in the past when you and I talked is happiness is the new rich. I think a lot of people in America, if you make about $100,000 a year, happiness comes with other things unrelated to money. So I think that's a good portion of the American population is over 100,000 family income, but they don't have happiness. It's a mindset. They want things. It's the chasing stuff, cars, houses, furniture, etc., etc. I would say I have chased those things, but in a very conservative way, relatively speaking, always living below my means, even when I was younger. I've been doing the same business for over 40 years in Canada first, then in Houston, and we've had success in both locations very early, but also prioritizing the fact that you want to spend time with family, friends, and saying no to certain things that would take away from that, including your time. And I have a theory that I spell love with Time. And I think people forget that you have to give time to your kids, your friends, your family. And if you don't do that, how do you expect them to have respect and time and listen to you when you want to talk?
And so I love that, and I would say I'm guilty of putting my time towards the pursuit of money, probably as much as one can at some points in my life, and then learn that the hard way when either A, I didn't feel fulfilled, or B, I didn't make the money and I'd given up a lot of my time, or C, I did make the money and I gave up a lot of my time and I didn't feel fulfilled. So I think that sometimes you have to learn that the hard way. But how did you learn that? Like what brought that to you?
Great question. My father was a super successful neurosurgeon in Canada, where I grew up. He got Order of Canada. So I grew up with a very big shadow over my head in terms of living up to his viewpoint. In fact, to the point of telling you that I didn't even feel successful till very recently, and I've been very, very successful 35 plus for 35 years. It's just in the recent so it's an internal success is an internal feeling. Yes, you have it in your bank account, etc., real estate, cash, whatever else. But I don't think it comes. It didn't come naturally to me that I felt it because there was such a high level of living up to your other people's standards, including my parents, family members. Success was just the way of life in our household. and very, very super successful friends. So even after attaining a lot of success very early in my career, in my life, I didn't really feel it till very, very recently when I was actually drilled about it through a coach and also a therapist. So they kept asking me, well, what does that mean? You can do whatever you want, but you're choosing. And also it's a prioritization. Do you prioritize your life, family, friends, having a good time, vacation, over making some more money? I think it's easier to make money than to have friends, family. How do you rate your life? You know, that's my viewpoint is, do I rate my life? Am I having a good life? Am I enjoying my life? If you're not enjoying your life, in my opinion, you're not happy, you're not successful. That's it.
It's so I want to ask about that, because I think that you have a probably a unique perspective on this, and that you have attained quote unquote success in the way that I think Americans consider success, where you have a thriving business, you have many, at this point, decades of success in those businesses. And I'm not saying it's a straight line towards success, but there's a hardship that got you there, and now you're there, and you're on the back half of your life where you can kind of enjoy the fruits of that labor. But I know that you are a part of Tiger 21, which is a group of people that are essentially wealthy people that are trying to live the best life possible. And I know you have exposure to a lot of folks through Tiger. And I have another friend who's in Tiger who says the same thing, that some of the wealthiest people I meet are the most unhappiest people I meet. And that's always that's a cliche to a certain degree that yes. A lot of, you always hear, but it's easy to say that, it's easy to hear that. Very few people, I think, know people like that. So I would ask the question of when you think of these super successful people amongst successful people, let me rephrase that. When you think of the financially most well-off people against these group of financially well-off people who are the most unhappy, what is it that you see? Is it that they are not fulfilled? Is it that they have not given time to relationships, that money became the drug they chased over love and fulfillment? What is it that you've noticed?
So I would say definitely they have not paid attention to the relationship. They haven't given the relationship a time. They have not given their kids time. Not all, of course, some. And they've had divorces. They've had bad relationships. They're just not prioritizing. They're prioritizing, and I don't blame them for making money. But if you're working 10 hours a day, give some of that other 14 hours to some relationship, and have some priority to spend time with and I think a lot of this has to do with schedule. For example, is schedule time with your kids, your wife, your mother, whoever you want to schedule with. There is more time in the day than people think. I think a lot of people waste time. I'm personally a very heavily scheduled person. If something goes wrong, which it will in the day, do something else to fill that block. Just don't sit around and waste your time. And I think make the most of your time. You only have a limited time on this earth. Besides work, who else should you be talking to? Your friends, family, uncle, aunt, whatever. I'm just picking that out of the blue. Or your co-workers. What do you give back to people? Think about other people besides yourself. Joy comes from helping others, unrelated to your family. That's one of the things I believe in, and impacting the world in a good way so that you get happiness and you can have joy yourself.
So when you think back to yourself as a young man, and you had a father who was acclaimed, would you say neurosurgeon?
Correct.
Right. So your father was like sounds like if he won the order in Canada, that's a big deal. He's the best of the best in the country at what he does. And I know that culturally, I come from a Middle Eastern family, and being a doctor is like, when I was a kid, it's like you're a doctor or a lawyer, you own a business. Those are the three things. And like the business is if you're not smart enough to be a doctor, right? Like every family's got to have their doctor, right? And my family, I was probably considered the one that my parents wanted to be the doctor. And so in your family, did you guys have that dynamic at all?
My brother's a doctor. My brother-in-law's a doctor. Definitely at one time I wanted to be a doctor, but I never studied hard enough. In total honesty, didn't put out the effort. But I found real estate pretty early when I was about 22, I would say. And I started doing many things. I bought a motel with my parents' money, unfortunately, not my own money. And then we made money and we sold it, but we lost it in another way, another venture. But I started buying real estate pretty early when I was like 24. And one of the first piece of property I bought was with all the money I had, money I didn't have, borrowed money also. And I lived at home, lived conservatively, drove an old car, just went on and bought more real estate as I went along. This was one of the requirements of doing well in real estate, as far as I'm concerned, was living below your means. And I know you're asking about and it was a very difficult thing because my father was very well known in that town. So growing up in that town was you were expected to be successful. There was a lot of expectations on my head. Even when I was doing real estate, I was, many people asked, is that your father? Even sideline. And so it's difficult growing up that way and having a big shadow over your head. And I think my kids, to some degree, have a big shadow on their head. They're getting over it more and more as they become more successful. But definitely, it's not easy to have a successful parent, and your shadow is bigger than your kids in some cases until they get over it.
So when you were young and you had the shadow, which I think, for people that have a successful parent, that's probably not uncommon. Sometimes they create their own shadow, which is
Right.
their own expectation, or there's this competitiveness of wanting to be number one, and that creates its own shadow. And so I probably fell into that camp. And then my father was successful, but he died young. And then when he was gone, it wasn't the same thing where I didn't have a famous father. I just had a father that had very high expectations and unrealistic expectations to a certain degree. And then I turned that and inwardly said, I need to win. I need to be competitive. I need to prove I'm worthy. And so that gave me the desire to probably work harder than in an unbalanced way, where I gave up relationships for work, when I was very young. And then I learned quickly that wasn't what I wanted. So my question for you is, obviously you've come to a point in your life where you've have a very holistic approach around happiness and success. What did it take? Like, was there a point where you weren't happy, or where you were spending too much time working, or where you didn't feel balanced, or was it something that came more naturally to you? Is my first question. My second question is for someone out there that maybe doesn't feel like they're successful. What are some tips you would have for them to get started? Because I think it's easier to say once you've done it but I think it really seems insurmountable for some people when they haven't done it.
So first of all, my father worked a lot of hours. Is virtually a workaholic. And so I had made a point in my life very early on that I didn't want to be a workaholic. I wanted money to work for me rather than me work for the money. And I worked hard, but I didn't work 18 hours a day, I would say. Very rarely. I would probably work 10, 12 hours sometimes. But I was also taking a lot of breaks in between. I took vacations. He took vacations. He took us as children on vacations. So he was a phenomenal father. I had low ego and a very humble person. So it was a great person to emulate. But as far as I didn't want to be, I wanted to spend time with my kids growing up and my wife and so on, much more than he did. So I made a point of sacrificing, I would say, a certain amount of money for time early. So I had enough money, but I knew that I had figured out early on, probably before I was 30, that time was more valuable than money. You could always make more money, but you couldn't make more of the time. And so the relationships I had with my kids have lasted into today. Be a friend to your children. I would say, if one of the key things I would say to all of you out there is be more of a friend to your children. Spend as much time as you can with them. Have dinner with them, have lunch with them, take them out to dinner, lunches, take them out for vacations. You don't have to take massively long or overseas or expensive vacations. You can even take them to the beach, take them to the park, just spend time with them and get used to it. Many people, I think, today are spending more time in front of the TV or I'd say internet and, doing things unrelated to being in personal contact. Go back to the easy, the simple stuff and be together without the screen on, without, go to a baseball game. It doesn't even have to be a professional one. Go to the kids' baseball game. attend your children's baseball, football, whatever else it is, when they start getting going on the COVID. I think, many people have now used the screen as a babysitting tool for children. And that's a mistake, in my opinion. And it's gonna come back to haunt us in the next generations to come. So that's my opinion of success, is spending time with your loved ones and with your friends. You don't have to, go for extravagant meal. You could literally go for coffee or have them over for coffee. Today, sit 6 feet apart and have coffee. I don't know, whatever suits you. The key, I think, is to obviously spend more and more time with the person that you like. I don't agree that Zoom works the same way, personally, or any other form of media. So that is part of success. I think the other thing in relationship is give more than you take. Give more than you take. So I have another saying. It's if you live your life the hard way, life will be easy. If you live your life the easy way, life will be hard. Meaning, basically, let's assume you went to grade school and high school and you quit. You didn't go to college. Okay. Some people are very successful after high school, but the numbers are less. Or if you didn't even go to grade school, you can still be successful. What did you do? Did you work hard or did you play around? You can work at McDonald's and become the CEO of McDonald's, possibly, or some other company. I actually have people in my business that started out as maids and are now managing 2 properties. So basically, the lady started out, this is actually a person I have right now on staff. She started out making maybe $9 an hour, $10 an hour. And today she makes like $70,000 within 4 years. Wow. Now, that's a big move. And she's extremely diligent. I've had people start out with me as a 800, well, no more than that, maybe $11 an hour as a leasing agent, and become a supervisor making $140,000 within 6-7 years. So what I'm trying to say is working, and that shines. And I also believe that there's more room at the top than the bottom. You can always hire somebody at $10, $11 an hour, but can you find that top A player? A players are hard to find, and they're worth every penny. Usually you pay an A player 25 to 50%, but you get 7 times the return. So I'm a big believer in those kind of things. That's my belief. And these are the sort of things I'm talking about. You can talk about something like, I believe the best student of any business is the most successful. Be the student. Learn everything possible. I mean, I've given you some ideas of what I think on all these situations. Example I'll give you in my business. I learned even recently how to change a 1-bedroom into a 2-bedroom in my business. And we've done many of those, and or 2-bedroom into a 3-bedroom if the room is there. Put up walls. You can change the dynamics of a property. So these are examples of things. Or how do you learn to do more Facebook marketing? We think the new world is about Facebook marketing in leasing, in our apartments, in our real estate, in our businesses, which is amazing. I'm not very good at technology compared to other people in my business. But anyway, so am I off track at all? Let me know if you want me to.
No. I love the perspective of just, and this is one of the reasons I think you and I connected, is you're such a lifelong learner. And what the takeaway I'm getting is people, and this is the lesson I've learned. Some of the things, like, I think that you were very lucky to have a great father. Like, even though he was a workaholic, he was a great example for you, right? And my father was a great example of a hard worker, but he was not he was not the most empathetic person, and he wasn't the most compassionate person, and he wasn't a great teacher for his kids. He was a good example of what a hard worker was, but after that, there wasn't a lot to be learned, except through kind of mimicry and watching. And I think a lot of people, they're raised in environments where they might get lucky and have a parent that gives them a lot of time and mentorship. I think that's lacking, probably. I think that nowadays, it's, to your point, it's easier for people to distract themselves and their children with an iPad than it is to spend time one-on-one with them, having a conversation and teaching them and just enjoying their company. And I'll wholeheartedly admit, I'm as guilty of that, not necessarily of giving the iPad, but of finding ways to distract me and the kids together, such as going to a friend's house and maybe dropping them off, and me and my friend hanging out, and them hanging out with their kids or going to a movie, which is another form of technology distraction. And yes, I'm spending time with them, rubbing shoulders with them, which is better than not. But it took COVID for me to realize that I've spent my life, the first 10 years of my kid's life, trying to be distracted because I didn't know how to connect with them. And it sounds to me like you were very conscientious around connection. And I think that that's a gift. And I think that that's kudos to you, because I think a lot of people either don't know how to be around, they don't know how to invest in those relationships. And so they do what's easy, which is go and do the things they want to do where they don't have to learn that trait. And that's what I did, you know?
So I'll give you some more examples of what I'm saying because you want some takeaways from people. I pick up my grandchildren, for example, on Wednesday afternoon at 1:30 and don't work the rest of the day, which is super hard for me to do. Yet they'll remember that, and I get recognized today from friends of mine. Oh, you're going to pick up your grandchildren. I wish I did that. Or I'll give you another example of things like that. Or I'll schedule a vacation. I scheduled a vacation last year with my 3 oldest grandchildren only, with my wife and I, 10-year-old and 2 8-year-olds, to New York. Or you don't have to go all that far. You can go earlier. Why can't you just take your one? And then we're now scheduling just one child. I mean, our daughters and our son is grown up, but let's say one daughter at a time to a vacation alone, 3 of you. So husband, wife, and one daughter, one child. So that's another example of how you can do. So get some one-on-one time. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It could be a day, it could be 2 days, it could be 6 days, whatever you can afford or time-wise. And it doesn't have to go far. It could go literally camping, but be with the person. So I'm giving examples of how to get into relationships easier with your kids, your grandkids, your friends. Do something for your friend that is going to help him in his life. Do you send a thank you note when you've done the person has done something nice for you? I think writing a handwritten thank you note is a big deal. I think that financially even, I get big returns from writing thank you notes. I get emotional, personal pleasure. I write thank you note to my staff. I write to my kids. I've written to my wife. I haven't done very many recently for some reason. I don't know why, but I do. I write thank you notes to my investors. A thank you note in many cases is worth more than the actual gift of money. Let's say $100 or wine or whatever else. But a handwritten thank you note means it because it means a connection. To me and to others, it means more. I keep thank you notes. Most people do because many people don't get many thank you notes in their whole month or year even. People go goo gaga. If I write a thank you note to somebody, first thing they want to is rip that part and read it because it's meant to them.
Yeah.
I think financially, I can also tell you that if you give a thank you note to somebody, 5 years from now, they may remember that. Like we've talked about, a yoga laugh we do. Why do we do a yoga laugh? It's a memory, or things like that.
Hey, you don't know this, but I do the yoga laugh on the show from time to time, and I was saving that for us to have. Do you want to do a yoga laugh right now?
Of course, we need to do one.
You guys, by the way, Ash has the best yoga laugh. I started it because of him. So how about on the count of 3, we do 3 yoga laughs?
Absolutely.
You ready, Ash?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Oh man.
The idea is to force yourself to do it, and it will give you a lot of positive energy around you. So Darius and I do at least 3 yoga laughs 5 days a week together. Even if I've done some before that, you cannot do any. If you get into stress, try a yoga laugh. You will get a benefit from it. I promise you, you cannot stop laughing. If you're watching the show, you'll probably laugh at our craziness. Now, what did we do to harm anybody when we did a yoga laugh? We just created. Now, Darius got a smile on his face from it, and he hasn't stopped smiling yet, which is positive. So right. It actually is proven to create endorphins in your body, energy. And so how can you have more of that? You know, anything like this, a small thing. What can you do? What small gifts or memories can you create for your family, your kids? Simple things like a used phone to give to a 10-year-old creates you can't even imagine what we gave an old cell phone to my 10-year-old, 11-year-old to use, without, she doesn't even have cellular service. And she was ecstatic. I mean, the thing is sitting around. We forgot and we hadn't even had it. But think about this logically. What is it that you can help? How can you give small things or gifts to people that don't have some? I mean, my kids have lots of stuff, but I mean, and stuff does not buy happiness. I think that's something people have to come across. I don't believe it. I mean, I don't talk about stuff with my kids. I refuse to talk about it. I'll talk about experiences, but I will not talk about sofas and chairs and cars that they want to buy, which is fine. Go buy it. Don't talk to me about it. Or clothes or expensive handbags or stuff. We do still buy it, but I don't get involved with the thought process or the wasting of time, energy. That's just my personal perspective.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Ash? First of all, guys, this is a great conversation. I know sometimes people are shy when they're watching the show, but if you get an opportunity, my team's on standby. Ask questions. You can still start the watch party. But my question for you, Ash, is I have two questions, and we got about 10 more minutes till the show wraps here. My first question is, and you don't have to answer this, but do you have any religious like upbringing or background? Do you mind?
So first of all, Hindu.
Oh,
but
okay.
I would say I feel connected to God. I don't know if I've told you, but maybe I have, that I'm totally connected to God. I believe God does good things for me all the time, and he works in my favor. And I talk about it in many different ways with my kids. And I also believe that if you write something down you want to happen, chances of your success or getting what you want goes up. Whether it's a vacation or a relationship or a meeting of somebody or accomplishment of some type. I have a lot of stuff written down that I want to accomplish, and many of those goals may be a simple thing like I want to walk 3 or 4 times a week with my wife. Maybe as simple as that, and it'll start happening. Or I want to take a vacation with my brother, and I wrote it down a few years ago that I want to have 2 vacations a year with my brother, and it started happening. Or I want to go hiking, and then it started happening. So these are, your brain works in mysterious ways. And I just say connection to God is not relation to that. But my God connection is, so I have a theory that instead of asking for things from God, when you already have a lot of stuff, I'll call it, and most of us have a lot of stuff, we should be asking God, what can I do for you?
Wow.
Opposite. He's got 8 billion people asking for stuff they want every day, all day long. Why not try to say, well, what can you do for God? I mean, what are you doing here? I mean, help somebody.
When you ask the question of what can you do for God, what do you like? What types of, how do you get your answers on that? Is it that things happen and that open themselves up to you? But what, give me an example of that.
Well, I did something on I have a couple of WhatsApp cousins. So I wrote to them all that send me separately, that whatever you're contributing $500 to, I'll contribute $500 to. I'm just giving an example. Or giving a gift to somebody or doing something to them without them knowing it. I'm not going to specifics, but somebody needed heart surgery and needed some money. So I told the person that's getting that heart surgery done for that fellow, he actually works for me. And the other person was in another country, third world country. And I just said, okay, give this money to get the heart surgery done for this guy. This is cash. Don't tell anybody. Example. I feel that less I've given donations to certain situations, but I don't want my name. Giving money without recognition is, I feel, the most, it gives you a sense of joy that you cannot get. I don't need a thank you. I get enough vibes of positive energy knowing that somebody got help from that, financially help. It's not financially, usually it's something I want something done for that reason, for that money that I've targeted. I do target. We have our own nonprofit. We educate orphans. My wife runs that. But again, I'm not looking for a kudos or something like that. But I get an emotional energy, positive energy. It's not describable. It's like a chill up your back. How many chills up your back have you gotten last year or this month or whatever? The more joy, the chills up your back you can get, I think the better you will be in life. So I think that's something to think about. How do you get those chills? How do you get someone, whatever you do, how can you create that? You probably got a couple of chills when your kids were born, I'm assuming, or saw them coming out. But that kind of chill, how do you get more of those in life?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I have two questions. So one of the questions was, and the reason I asked what your religious background was that there's a gentleman who he actually spoke at EO Houston last week, who was on my show. His name's Don DePani. Do you know him?
I don't know him, but I've heard him.
So he's a Hindu priest, and he used to be a monk.
Yeah.
And he's going to be on the show tomorrow, actually. He's a really amazing person. And I brought him into my company 3 or 4 years ago, and I did a day of learning with him. And I didn't realize that part of the Hindu religion states that your possessions take your energy. And I don't know if he said something to that effect, that's a belief of Hinduism, is that your any possession you own, it takes some of your energy, or you're giving your energy to that possession. And so there's this ideology around minimalism or not being attached to possessions for that reason. Is that
it doesn't ring with me personally, because I'm not super attached to. I'm attached to people.
Yeah.
Friends, family. Yes, I have a lot of good stuff, nice stuff, but it's not a need. It's not for me personally. It's not necessarily true for other people, and I respect that. Everybody has their own viewpoint. I think one of the things that Hinduism preaches is a way of life. It's do good for others, help others, impact the world. I actually don't believe that majority of the people. I think people have become very selfish over a lifetime, and they've had a lot of tough times for whatever reason. Having money does not mean you're supposed to hoard it. You're supposed to, you help your family, help your kids, help others. I think it's not easy to do. I'm still working on giving more of money away, frankly. It's not been easy because I grew up with an environment where scarcity was the way of life for my grandparents. I grew up with my grandparents. So it's built into my brain.
Can I ask you a question on that? Because I suffer from that. I suffer from scarcity mentality. My grandparents, my grandmother grew up in the Depression in the United States. My grandfather grew up in a village in just north of Lucca in Italy, very as poor as you possibly could be, like literally like where they didn't know where they're going to get their next meal from. And then so they both grew up with extreme scarcity mentality around the turn of the century. And my mom is a product of that. She grew up with a scarcity mentality for that reason. My father's family was very well-to-do, and my grandfather, my dad's dad, was a very successful merchant business person in Iran. He passed away at the age of 52, and my uncle, from what the story is, that my uncle spent the family money, and that my father then grew up poor, but having grown up rich at one point. So then he had a scarcity mentality. So I believe, and then the revolution happened in Iran. They lost everything, came back to the United States. So I grew up with a scarcity mentality. And now at the age of 42, I have fully realized that it is something that is at odds with my happiness. And so my question for you, because I think that you definitely are one of the happier, if not happiest people I know, how do you overcome a scarcity mentality in a world where there is a lot of scarcity from a financial standpoint, or for people that were brought up and it was basically beaten in their head that they need to save money, be careful, don't spend money, have that scarcity, don't give that away. How do you get out of that scarcity mindset?
Unfortunately, I'm still a work in progress. I wish I had the right answer for you. I think I cannot. I don't want to give you something I cannot be talk about with and have done it. I think I have to pass on that question in terms of getting out of the scarcity mentality. I know I have it. I am getting better at it, but I still think I have that problem. I've worked very hard.
Let me interrupt you on that.
Sure.
My question to you is, how are you working to get out of it then? Because I agree that it's a hard mentality to get out of. So what do you have any suggestions or things that are better for you for that?
We'll start slowly by giving a certain amount of money. Say tip a little bit more than you normally do at the restaurant. When you're passing by somebody that needs help, give them some money without them knowing it. I think the more you're able to give without somebody knowing that you're giving money, I did something with a friend of mine, and I've never met the person that they gave the money to, or we gave the guy baseball lessons. This young kid, because the family was not well. We could have done a lot more, but we just decided, okay, don't give it. I'll write your check. Just tell me. It's not a lot, comparatively speaking, but starting to do things for others as much as you can. It could be a family member that needs help, a child in college that needs $200 or whatever it is to do something, or send an airline ticket to somebody that did not expect to come home and surprise a mother and one of your employees, which are things that I think are important. And it's not only very good for you, but it's very good for your business and your psychological family and everybody else. You'd be surprised how much kudos you get for that kind of stuff. And I think it's important, but unfortunately, they usually find out who did it. That's the only problem I have with it. I don't know how to get around the I don't know how to avoid somebody finding out. It's very difficult unless you do a third from another hand. I think you get much more value psychologically if you can.
I just took away from this conversation. I know that we're running out of time here, so we'll get wrapped up. But what I just took away from what you just said was that giving and being so giving is really about not having when you give, you're going against this scarcity mentality. That is an abundance mentality when I give. And for me, being an achiever, it's all or nothing. It's why am I not giving a lot versus, and so instead I get intimidated and I give my time. I'm very generous with my time. I'm very generous with my resources. But financially, that's an area that I've been stuck because of the scarcity mentality. And my takeaway from what you just said that I think the listeners should consider is that if you're not giving, that means that you have maybe given the number that you have to give too much. And I think this is around habit more than the number. And right. What I found is I'll give my time to a fault, which you had said earlier. That's our most scarce asset is our time. And I give it away like it's free sometimes, which might even be an issue, but pick a number that you feel comfortable with, even if it's $5 a week, and say, I'm going to give $5 a week, and then get into the habit of doing that. Because my takeaway was, I'm going to pick a number. It might be a small number, and get comfortable with the small number and try to do the things you're talking about. And maybe it's $20 a week or $100 a week or $5 a week, whatever that number is that makes someone feel comfortable, but get into that habit. Because my guess is it goes back to what you said before, which is it's like love. The more you give, the more you'll receive it. It'll make you want to give more of it. Do you think that's a good way of approaching this?
Absolutely. I think you can't give anything away. You probably end up getting a lot. If you give. I know for sure that the amount of money is very small comparatively to what I've gotten back. Usually that the energy and other things I've received in relationship to giving, the financial part of it, or even the time part of it, I mentor people all the time without any kind of charge. And it would be much cheaper for me to give the money rather than to mentor them with my time. But I feel the energy. I feel positive energy from the mentoring. And, you can choose whatever way you want. And it's not easy to give your financial money away unless you're brought up that way. And the people that give more usually get more from God and other surroundings for whatever reason. How that happens, God knows. I mean, I don't know the real reason. The other thing I was going to just share with you that I've got, and maybe I've shared this with you personally, but if you are hurt by somebody financially or personally, or even in a relationship, or somebody that has done you harm in any way, I would suggest to get over that grudge, you pray for their happiness, the other person's happiness. Pray for what the other person's you wish in your life. And you'll see to overcome that problem that you've got with that person. I've got, people that always try to take advantage of me in the business. And yes, they get away with it many times, but I don't ever hold a grudge. I shouldn't say never, but I try very hard not to hold a grudge because it eats at me. If you've heard of that before, the saying. But in fact, I pray for their happiness, that they, and I think in the end of the day, it all washes out. Yeah. Those people were meant to take advantage of me for whatever reason, and that's happened. Some cases are happening right now in some situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, Ash, you're always a wealth of knowledge. I just wanted, to end the show. First of all, thank you for being on the show, man. This is like, I get the, with a lot of the guests, I don't get to talk to them as much as I get to talk to you. I get to talk to you every day, casually, but I really wanted to share your voice to the world, because I think that you have such a wealth of knowledge and such a beautiful approach to how you see life. And I envy that. And it helps me become a better person. So I thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, of course.
I want to end on two things. Number one is, as you know, I wrote my book that's coming out, and it's the core value equation. And I want to ask you, like, what is the number one value that you live by in your life that you think that you identify with, that really helps for you to feel fulfilled, and that's really created value for you? So what's the number one core value that you live by, that you wish to promote to the world?
Probably family.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't, you may not consider that a core value, but I think it's, I'm thinking what other, I know my values pretty well, but that came to mind right away. I think gratefulness, it's not really a value as such.
I think I've gotten more. Gratitude is definitely
gratitude is a big value for me. Feeling eternally blessed. It's kind of funny with all these things. I mean, I have other values that are in the organization and myself. I have deep, but I've somehow come up with these recently more so. I believe a great deal in teamwork, giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. These are very, very simple values. There's a lot of that. People say honesty and integrity, and we have those, but I feel these other ones that I just mentioned are values that people don't think of as often. That's why I said them.
Yeah, I see them with you. Like, you would definitely have a strong sense of gratitude and kindness. And I would say relationship, when you say family, because some people don't have much family, but you can always have you can always build relationships. And I think that's the currency of life, really, and so it's wonderful to hear that coming from you. And there's so much to be learned from you in your life. And I'm so grateful to have you in my life, man. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Obviously, a lot of the people that come on the show, they're promoting stuff, and you're not. But is there anywhere people can find you, like LinkedIn or anywhere, if people?
I think it's better off that someone wants to connect with me. I'm happy to give them my email address, and they can connect with me. I just be careful how you connect with me. I'm not going to. I don't know what they want, but I'm happy to help.
Yeah. You know what? If you want to connect with Ash, email me, Darius at thererealdarius.com, and I'll screen them for you, Ash, to make sure you don't get any crazy.
I'm not sure I'm that popular, so I'm not sure you're gonna get many emails. So don't worry about it too much.
You never know. You never know. And so, guys, thank you so much for watching the show today. We have a couple other shows. Ash, thank you again for being such a wonderful guest. Guys, you can catch us at The Real Darius M on Facebook. You can also subscribe.
I thought we'd end with a laugh.
And subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Greatness Machine. And last but not least, catch me at www.therealdarius.com. And yeah, let's end with a big laugh. How about that? 1, 2. All right. Thanks, everybody.